Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 7, Pantsing with Genesis Duran. Hello, friends, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Inked Podcast. Today, we are talking about the opposite end of the planning spectrum. At this point, we've already talked about being a planner and how their brains function, but today we are talking to Miss Genesis Duran, as she is here to help us learn more about pantsing. So how are you doing today, Miss Genesis?
I'm doing great. I had 30 minutes to wake up, so I'm awesome right now.
That 30 minutes to prepare for this.
The, the 30 minutes was amazing.
For
Literally
those of
just
you who,
immediately got on my computer.
amen. For those of you who don't know, first of all, Genesis and I are in different time zones. Thus, while it is like afternoon for me, it is like really early morning for Genesis. So,
It's 9 o'clock. I usually wake up like at 8:30, but this is fine.
yeah, we'll be fine. But we applaud her for being up
Yeah.
early to join us today. Um, but for those of you who are not familiar with Genesis and her work, she has been passionate about storytelling since childhood. Whether she's dreaming up her next book or enjoying music from For King and Country, Need to Breathe, and NF, she infuses her creativity and the emotional power of music into every story. Residing in the vibrant state of Texas, Genesis' imagination never rests. And as a friend, she has been such a joy to know, and I cannot wait to hear all her thoughts on pantsing today. Now, I will be relying on Genesis insights today because, as you guys have probably learned from our last episode, I myself am not a pantser. So let's just jump into our questions for the day, shall we, Genesis?
Yes, I like that idea.
So, our first question for today is, how would you describe pantsing? Like, what is pantsing to you?
Well, I know that other people have different like pantsing techniques, I guess, but like for me, pantsing is just coming up with the ideas on the spot and just kind of discovering the story as you're writing your book. It's not really that you know it's going to happen, but you don't at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
You're
kind
kind
of
of
weird.
the cool thing about pantsing that I've heard, at least, that a lot of like my friends who are pantsers have told me, is like the cool thing is you're kind of feeling what the reader's gonna feel as they're reading the story,
Hmm.
because like
Well,
it.
for me, I don't think I really feel that. Like, how the story is gonna feel to the people. Like, to me, I don't really do that. Like, I know, like, a lot of people are like, oh, this part was so sad. I was crying as I was writing it. Or I could, like, feel the anger that was coming from this character. Like, maybe sometimes I can, but I think it's because a lot of my writing is just coming from me. So it's like, I already know, but I don't feel it
Mhm.
at the moment.
Yeah.
It's kind of like I'm infusing trauma on my characters or something like
Ouch.
that.
You poor innocent little characters. So if we haven't already said it, just to clarify what Genesis and I have been saying, pantsing is making up the story as you go. So while a planner starts with a detailed outline or like a plot chart or some
Mhm.
kind of planning base, pantsers have the idea and decide to just go for it. So it's definitely the opposite end of the spectrum, and it's really interesting for me to hear from pantsers because I myself am not one. Um, so I want to ask you, Genesis, why do you prefer to pants a story than to like plan it out?
Planning my story out, but I don't know why it's like very boring to me. Like I tried Milanote and for a little bit it was like, "Oh, this is awesome. I get to plan it." But it was never really planning. Like it was just to me like, "Okay, this like I know what's going to happen, but I have to somehow like figure it out." And I prefer pantsing because that's a word, but it's like I get to like discover my story. So I feel like it's much more fun like that because I get to
Mm-hmm.
like piece the things together as I'm writing the story. Whereas when if you plot, you have to put the outline first. And I think just easier for my brain since I kind of already have the plot in my head. So it's just
Mhm.
easier for me to just go off of that and just immediately go to writing. And I don't really care about the editing process at that moment. Like,
Mhm.
I can just rewrite the story later, and I don't
Yeah,
mind that.
that's true. Um, I've definitely pants stories before. Like
Mhm.
I've tried it on some, and I'm not that person. But like with you talked about mail note or I don't know even how to say it.
Milanote.
Milanote. There you go. That's a website, guys. For those of you who don't know. I actually hate that for planning my story as a planner. I tried it, and like it's good if you're building like the lore of a story, but it's not great if you're like
Yeah.
planning. It's a
Yeah,
little
I had
difficult to
to
use.
plan a story for a co-authored story, a fan fiction of Star Wars, and it was just like we had role played the story first, and then after that we just kind of like just went off and just started plotting the ending. We had to like kind of plot it when we were rewriting it because it was like not making sense, the story.
Mm,
So it was kind of like, okay, scene one, this is gonna happen, and then scene two, this is gonna happen. Like it was easy to see what was gonna happen, and I liked that idea of plotting. But like for my story missing, I just really just went off and just started. Like, it was a strange process. I watched a music video, and it had scenes from a movie which is called Priceless, and I was just like, well, what happens in the story? So I ended up just writing off of those scenes and just putting it together and just figuring out, like, connecting the scenes into my story, which, by the way, they're no more in there. Like, some of the scenes are
mm.
kind of in there, but then I just rewrote it again.
Yeah. Um, so you've kind of talked about how it's hard to plan, but when it comes to pantsing, what do you think the hardest part of being a pantser is?
I think there's two things that are actually pretty hard. It's that you get writer's block, I think, a lot more than plotters do, and you just have so many ideas that you kind of just have to ignore them when you're writing on one thing, because if you start letting those ideas get to you and you don't like write them down, it just kind of gets overwhelming, and
Mm,
you just want to start writing those stories. I mean, I know everyone does, but I think specifically for like people that pants um it's like you get these so many ideas and you just can't focus on your story because you can't get the ideas for your story.
hmm So I've talked to some pantsers before, and they say a lot of the time they just write and write and write and write their story until their like creative juices are kind of done for the day, and like that leads
Mm,
them to get writer's block a lot faster because when you're inspired as a pantser, you kind of go for it,
yeah.
and then sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I do think I needed to say this, that to those people that, I don't know if someone watching this is that has done that, but I say stick to it. Um, it's it's no shame in going to the plotting way. Like, plotting can actually really help your story. Taking a break can help your story. Because
Hmm
like recently, I just stopped writing missing because I just had no more ideas and I was just kind of bored about it. So I just started writing a Hunger Games fan fiction to
See, that's
kind
how
of
I
just take up that time.
That's how I am. Like when I feel like I'm not inspired to write a current work in progress, like that
Uh
even though
huh.
that is really important to me and I really want to write it, I'll be like, hold on, I gotta go on a side quest. So I have like a rom-com that I write when I'm not working on my dystopian like work in progress, which is like my main one right now. I just
Mhm.
go off and write this little cheesy rom-com. And like that's just what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I just find like writing something else when I just can't think for my story is just pretty fun. And it also just like, it's not like really a break, but it's more like a relax for my, like a rest time for my brain, that
Mhm.
I can just like, okay, well, you can stop focusing on this story so hard and trying to just get the create something out of this. You can take a break now.
Yeah. So you kind of talked about this a little bit already, but how do your stories tend to like progress being a pantser?
So I will try to explain it the best way because it's kind of weird. but the best way I can give an example is that it's kind of like thinking of a movie. So in my brain, it's more like a movie than a story. And in my brain, it's like I think of the scenes. So, like, sometimes I'll be listening to music and I'll just come up with a scene for a story. Like, for example, I remember I was on YouTube and I saw a short that had Perfect by Ed Sheeran, and I was just thinking of a dance scene between a couple or having like a dance for like prom or something like that. So that kind of inspired a scene in my story or one
Oh,
that's gonna come.
yeah.
And so like these scenes they'll just come randomly. So it I could have a scene that's like goes in the middle of the story. I could have a scene that just starts at the beginning. Like my story that is a Star Wars fan fiction that I'm writing on my own. Um I had an idea for the beginning scene and I've always had that idea and it just like it's always stayed, but I just kind of change it. And then as I went along, I got like ideas for different scenes, but as I'm writing, it's just like connecting the dots. Like it's kind of like a screenplay for a movie and you just
Mhm.
connect them together. Like you put them together cuz there's like the middle part that you don't know what happens.
So it's
So that's the
almost
stuff that I do.
so the way that you're describing it, it sounds like it's almost like you have a conspiracy board in your head.
Exactly, I think.
Like you've
It's
got
like
the
coming up with
wall
a bunch
and
of
you've got the
conspiracies.
string. Like you've got the wall of different events and you just like, wait, how do you connect? And you just start wrapping string around all the I'm just picturing you doing that. Like I can actually picture I've met you in person and like I've talked to you in person. I can picture you actually standing at a conspiracy wall in your head and just like
I
wrapping
mean,
the string everywhere.
I've always wanted to get like a board so I could put like pictures on it and just like connect the stuff together because I've always liked that detective stuff, like just connecting the dots and stuff.
That's
But
good.
yeah, it's like weird. Like I know I don't do it on purpose. Like it just happens. So
Hmm.
explaining it is kind of hard to do because it just happens and it happens in so many different ways. Like sometimes I'll just go on a writing spree and it just starts coming out. Like it's almost like I'm not thinking of it, it's just coming out on the pen.
Yeah. So, do you have one like big piece of advice that you would give someone who's a new writer who may want to like try pantsing and see if it works better for them?
Um I think like if you want to try it, go ahead. Like just dive right into it because that's all ultimately that's what we do is like we get an idea and we just go for it. But if you
Hmm.
start seeing that that's like not working out for you, then I think you should just start trying to kind of like plot it out. Like I've always liked the idea of just putting scene 1, this is going to happen, scene 2, this happens, scene 3, and then just writing that out.
Yeah.
Having a notebook, so you can just like wherever you go, you just write, continue writing, watching videos, seeing writing prompts. You just have to get that creativeness to start coming from you because I know that like sometimes you can start losing that imagination as you get older, but the whole point of being a pantser is like you need to have more creativeness, like more imagination from anything, movies, reading, music, just anything in general, and you
Hmm.
watch that or listen to it, that's going to help you so much. And honestly a lot of the part of being a pantser is you also daydream a lot.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, like sometimes I'll be laying down in bed and I'll be like, oh, well, I can't watch a movie, so I'll just watch a movie in my head. And I'll literally think of like the intro for a movie. Literally, if it's like the Star Wars fan fiction, I'll just think of the Star Wars intro and then just go from there. Or like, I know that if you want to start, you can try fan fictions. Um, those are really good. Or you could like do what I did, is watch a movie, you really like the story, think of a what if. So it's kind of like a fan fiction, and as the movie is going on, just infuse your character into the movie scenes along with the other ones and see how that works out. So honestly, that's my advice, and just
Hmm.
sticking to it.
Yeah. Sticking to it is something all writers have to learn.
Mm-hmm. Because
Well,
it
Dennis,
it does get hard.
Yeah, it does. Well, Genesis, you have a lot of great insight today, so thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing all this great information with us.
Of course.
Um, and as always, thank you to our listeners for being here for yet another episode of the Inked Podcast. Bye, guys.
Footnote. Hi again, guys, it's me. I just wanted to pop back in to let you know that the reason this episode sounded a little different was because I recorded on my phone and not on my computer due to being on the go at the time. So thank you guys for enduring the episode and just being there and still listening even though I was on the go. I really appreciate it, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Bye, guys!